Hello, BookTube, and welcome back at last to Poetry Thursday, where I read you a poem and talk about it a little, and it has become a kind of a narrative because I am reading my way through this, 20th Century American Poetry. The title of this book is synonymous with a term of mockery that I have used for the whole of my life. 20th Century American Poetry, for me, is notoriously where the genre of poetry goes to die and never recovers. No one reads poetry now. No general interest reader does. No general interest reader will read a book of poetry on the subway or go to the poetry section at their retail bookstore or even know where it is. Before 1956, before the poetry changed in the 20th century America, that wasn't true. It wasn't just aesthetes and snobs that read A.E. Housman, for instance. Everybody read A.E. Housman. Everybody read Robert Frost. That changed in the 20th century. And we are slowly but surely creeping up to the heyday of those changes. I think I will give you an example today. Today, in any anthology like this, we've encountered this before, you're going to encounter pet projects by the editors. You're going to encounter crusades by the editors to bring back the memory of long-forgotten figures and whatnot. Yeah, you really deserve a place in this anthology, that sort of thing. You're not going to get much in the way of 21st century SJW progressive stack box checking. That now is the only governing factor for a poetry anthology. You can't get a poetry anthology that doesn't do that and only that. They don't care about quality. They'll say it in the introduction. That the idea of quality is a colonial imposition by white people. This was done before that the institutions of publishing and academia were completely ideologically captured. And that capture will last the lifetime of the people capturing it. The only thing that gets rid of that kind of thing is a fascist military overtake of the country, which would be even worse. So we're stuck with no poetry anthologies from now on, but this was done before then. So you get a wide variety of things. We've seen a couple of poets have been included in here just because the editors think they really haven't got a fair shake. And I think we've seen pretty clearly that in a lot of the cases, they didn't deserve a fair shake. But in any big anthology like this, you're going to have huge figures. You're going to have figures that you can't leave out. Until the 21st century, you can't leave them out. And that's what we're doing today. We're doing such a figure today. Today we're doing Wallace Stevens, whose debut poetry collection is a bit of an oddity. Harmonium was the name of it. And the editors of this book heap praise on Harmonium. I guess it's not the first time I've seen it. It is an incredibly praised volume. They say that it's not only the best modernist poetry debut of them all, but one of the most impressive American poetry debuts of them all, period, of any school, including Leaves of Grass. They cannot sing its praises high enough. And they have to work really hard to get Wallace Stevens. There are a lot of Wallace Stevens poems in here. This is not a case where we're getting just two. They have to work really hard to resist the temptation to just make every poem from Harmonium instead they go afield to other things. I think I will read you one poem from Harmonium and maybe one that's not. Just to give you a sense. We'll read just two Wallace Stevens. You don't have to read them all. So the first one we'll read is The Snowman. Very, very famous poem. One must have a mind of winter to regard the frost and the boughs of the pine trees crusted with snow and have been cold a long time, to behold the junipers shagged with ice, the spruces rough in the distant glitter of the January sun, and not to think of any misery in the sound of the wind, in the sound of few leaves, which is the sound of the land full of the same wind that is blowing in the same bare place. For the listener who listens in the snow, and nothing but himself, beholds nothing that is not there, and nothing that is. That was done in 1923, and I think if you bear down on it, you can sort of get a sense of what's going on. Stevens is trying to imagine here a viewpoint that is not a viewpoint. A viewpoint that is, what would the viewpoint of winter be from a rock or a tree? No history, no poetic illusions, no sense of self, no sense of the season. Just what would, you have to be in winter a long time to be in that mind frame, to have that mind frame of nothing, looking at nothing, and adding nor subtracting nothing from what it's seen. I've always thought this was kind of fascinating. I need to get a copy of Harmonium. I'm sure there's a really pretty reprint somewhere. I need to get a copy of that book. I don't have one. I don't have actually any Wallace Stevens poetry except for what's in this anthology. But we'll do that one. We'll do The Snowman, but then I want to give you another one Let me find. There was one other that I thought might work, might pair well with that. We'll only do 2. They give us a dozen Wallace Stevens, including some really long ones. It's really nice that there are some long ones. We will not do 13 Ways of Looking at a Blackbird. That's probably the most famous poem from Harmonium. We'll find something else to do. Yeah, here we go. This is from 1921. It was revised in 31 and then in 57. This is called The Man Whose Pharynx Was Bad. The time of year has grown indifferent. Mildew of summer and the deepening snow are both alike in the routine I know. I am too dumbly in my being pent. The wind attendant on the solstices blows on the shutters of the metropoles, stirring no poet in his sleep, and tolls the grand ideas of the villages, the malady of the quotidian. Perhaps, if summer ever came to rest and lengthen, deepen, comforted, caressed through the days like oceans in obsidian, horizons full of night's midnight blaze, perhaps if winter once could penetrate through all its purple to the final slate, persisting bleakly in an icy haze, one might in turn become indifferent, less indifferent, out of such mildew, plucking nearer mold and spouting new orations of the cold. One might, but time will not relent. I botched that, so we're going to do that again. Also, I love it. I love it more. I reread this last night. I reread a bunch of these last night and really liked them more than I ever have. The time of year has grown indifferent. Mildew of summer and the deepening snow are both alike in the routine I know. I am too dumbly in my being pent. The wind attendant on the solstices blows on the shutters of the metropoles, stirring no poet in his sleep, and tolls the grand ideas of the villages, the malady of the quotidian. Perhaps if summer ever came to rest and lengthen, deepen, comforted, caressed through days like oceans in obsidian, horizons full of night's midsummer blaze, perhaps if winter once could penetrate through all its purple to the final slate, persisting bleakly in an icy haze, one might in turn become less diffident. Out of such mildew, plucking nearer mold and spouting new orations of the cold. One might, but time will not relent. I love the term oceans and obsidian because I always associate that with Wallace Stevens. He is such a beautiful writer. His poetry is just beautiful. Now, there's quite a bit in here that they give of him that isn't comprehensible and that is meant to be non-comprehensible in ways that, of course, you already know. I don't like. I don't like them at all. I don't approve of them at all. The houses are haunted by white nightgowns. None are green, or purple with green rings, or green with yellow rings, or yellow with blue rings. None of them are strange. What on earth? But these things, these more formal poems, I think there's a haunting beauty to their phrasing, to the word choice. This is a case where I don't know if it's true. I don't know anything about Wallace Stevens, but this is a case where I really get the impression that every word was carefully, crystally picked over. And the second poem was much like the first one. The second poem is saying, if we weren't caught in always being pent, if we weren't caught in time's web, if summer were allowed to actually have the time it deserves to unfold and fill everything and caress everything, if winter could do the same, then maybe I wouldn't be so diffident to them. Maybe they would mean more to me, but unfortunately that's not going to happen because the one is no sooner here than it's gone. That has, I think, a mirror image to the first one that we read about how long you would need to be in winter to really understand winter. There's lovely thinking going on there. Just beautiful. I need to get a copy of this guy's poetry. There is a readily available trade paperback that I don't have. But this sets my heart at ease. I knew that Wallace Stevens was a big name coming up, and we've got to him. Some of the poems I don't like, but a lot of them I really do, more than ever. So it calms me just a bit for the terrors that I know are coming. There are terrors coming. These poems flirt with an utterly inhuman viewpoint, but they are comprehensible. We've seen on Poetry Thursday poems that flirt with an inhuman viewpoint. These are comprehensible. They're etched in something out of time. Just amazing to me. I smile as ironically, as does everybody, with the fact that Wallace Stevens made $6 from the publication of Harmonium. He made a grand total of $6. from what these editors, for all I know they're right, I wouldn't argue with them, are calling one of the greatest poetry debuts of all time. He made $6. And he himself was the introvert's introvert. I would stop short of saying a raging a-hole, although I don't think anyone who knew him would stop short from saying that. Where all this came from, all this ethereal beauty, this otherworldly beauty, I do not know. Maybe that's what you need. Either way, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. So that our Poetry Thursday was a success. We are still in the realm of success for Poetry Thursday. The horrible days are coming, but they aren't here yet. So I'm going to bask in Wallace Stevens. I'm going to reread these over again. Maybe see if I can find any online. But we're going to move on next time. Who knows what we'll encounter? I'm not going to look ahead. I don't want to tease you. We'll come back to Poetry Thursday next week and see what we find. So I will wrap this up for now, and I will see you then. Thank you, BookTube.